Green Bay Packers take the dub against the Indianapolis Colts by a score of 16-10. Top 5 graded players on the Green Bay Packers as they were hosting this game. Javon Bullard up at the top of the list. Look at that, the rookie. You love to see it. 78.3. Running back Josh Jacobs next on the list, 77.2. Romeo Doubs, 74.4. At number 3, Dontavian Wicks at number 4. Helping out my fantasy team. Thank you, Mr. Wicks, for showing up this season. 73.9. Number 5, cornerback Jair Alexander, 70.7. And then Malik Willis, 69.6. Did enough. He did enough, Dalton. Flipping to the other side, he got the Indianapolis Colts. Will Fries, once again, the top-graded player. Now, it wasn't the 93 overall grade that it was last week, but 75.7. Number 2, Grover Stewart at 73.6. Wide receiver Alec Pierce at 72.8. Center Ryan Kelly at a 72.7. And then Odeingbo. That's how you say it. There you go, Trev. Get paid to do this. 71.3. Quarterback Anthony Richardson. Not great. 43.6.
There's a gator.
Okay.
There he is.
Look, you got the first one earlier in the show. You didn't have to do that. What's your stat that told the story?
All right, so I know what I have in the sheet here is the time of possession of 40 minutes and 11 seconds the Packers had. I'm doing a mini switcheroo on you.
Please do, because most impressive is Packers time of possession, so I will get to that.
I have another one that I found that I like even more.
Okay, let's hear it.
We watch games. We're upstairs watching games. I'm watching the Jets. We got Red Zone on. We got 8 million different things going. And this game was like never on Red Zone because no one was ever in the Red Zone. It was just like hardly after like the first quarter. All of a sudden the Packer game had like 3 minutes left, and I was like, oh, I guess it's over. Okay, and the Packers won. Okay, cool. This was the most fun tape watch I had this week. Going back, watching it sequentially, okay? And I'm watching it, and I was like, what is this offense? Who is coaching this, right? Because it didn't look like a Shanahan disciple. I thought, Trevor, for reference, I was watching this, and I was like, I thought I was watching a Kansas State game from last Friday again. And for reference, here's where I'm going with this. Kansas State in college runs more gap scheme runs than any team in the country. All of a sudden, I'm looking at this. I'm like, why does this look like this? Matt LaFleur, the Packers, Shanahan thing, they're a zone team. Last year, they ran 36% of their run plays were gap runs. All right? Not a particular high rate. They're a zone team. In this game, 58%. Malik Willis went in there, and they changed their entire offense in a week, and they're pulling guards, and they're running counters, and they're influencing linebackers, and they're running options with Willis. Like, it's like in a week, they built the perfect offense for Malik Willis. And then even the passing was just like, listen, dude, we're gonna ISO up like one guy, and you're gonna throw it to that guy. Okay, we're not making you do any full field, nothing. Just take a step and throw the football where we tell you to. Okay, but this run game all of a sudden was a whole different thing than usual. Like we saw them in the playoffs against the Cowboys last year. And it's just that same thing, outside zone, like
right.
Kyle Shanahan.
Right.
What they've done forever, what all 12 Shanahan coaches in the league do all the time, right? They changed the whole program. They messed with everything the Colts thought was coming on defense. And yes, there is an element to it where physically they battered them. Obviously, Josh Jacobs was spectacular. 32 carries, 151 yards, 6 missed tackles. He was great. The team had 261 rushing yards. Malik Willis had a little bit of that. But the scheme change and breaking tendency, when I tell you, Trevor, they created like an entire new run playbook just for this game, just for Malik Willis to get in there and run this. I don't know if LaFleur knows like a Chris Kleiman, the head coach at Kansas State, or there's some other college teams that I don't know if he knows these guys, but it looked like he went to school for like 2 or 3 days and learned every gap scheme, triple option look and run that he could, and they just battered the Colts with it all day. And I could not believe what I was watching. This was for LaFleur, and I'm going to stick in the most impressive thing. I'm just going to take both windows real quick. LaFleur, and I'm going to Jeff Hafley too, new defensive coordinator, big variable this year.
Yep.
Mixing up looks on defense, and look, over his last 4 years at Boston College, highest rate of single high defenses in the country, okay? Big adjustment there. He's more balanced with the Packers. I was curious if he was going to stay like that, like he was in college, because the NFL is a different game and certainly a different game than the ACC, right?
Yep.
Much more balanced. It's much more even when it comes to single high and two high looks, and it was a lot early in the game. No matter what look they were in, they knew. As long as we don't give up home runs to Anthony Richardson, we're just going to play this complimentary game. We're going to manufacture what we can, and we're going to make them manufacture what they can underneath. The combination of this was the best coach game I've seen so far this year out of anybody. It was spectacular.
Yeah, and I think I mean, that's a fantastic point. The time of possession is what I wanted to point out because it's egregious. It's like 41 minutes for the Packers and
40 to 20, yeah.
And 19 for the Colts. Yeah, basically like 40 to 20, which is crazy. I mean, that just means you are running the ball at will. And I think my most disappointing, we can go all around here because it's just a couple of points I want to make. My most disappointing was the Colts' run defense because they missed 10 tackles this past week. So they weren't helping themselves out in that regard. But the Packers were also, like you said, kind of giving them a run flavor they weren't used to.
Yep.
And I think that's really, really important and shows you got a good coach in that regard who is willing to do something like that and has the ability and the acumen to be able to adjust. That also shows that you have the right roster in place for guys that are able to be flexible like that. But so those are my most impressive, my most disappointing, kind of like went hand in hand with sort of what you were saying there. Stats that told the story, though. Anthony Richardson's completion percentage to me, 62.5 completion percentage in week 2, adjusted completion percentage, so it takes drops into account. And then just a 50% completion percentage last week when everybody was like, ooh, Anthony Richardson, it was just a 50% adjusted completion percentage. Last year, the league average was 75%. He's not even close. He's not even close to it. And the problem is that I think Richardson's supremely talented. He makes throws that very few quarterbacks can make. But the league and defenses are trending in a direction that is very anti-Anthony Richardson. They're trending to much more towards those quarter, half defenses that can defend deep really well, or at least those too high deep safety looks that can defend those deep passes really well, and they dare you to be patient enough to do something underneath. And not only do I feel like Anthony Richardson doesn't see those throws as well, he does not complete those throws well. In order to beat these defenses in the way that Indianapolis would need to beat them, you either need to run the ball at an incredibly high clip to start getting the defense to rotate safeties down and really be able to attack them over the top, or you've got to be nickel and diming them up the field so efficiently that they have to adjust somewhere and then you hit them over the top. Richardson's game right now is not conducive to being able to do that. And I'm really worried about the Colts because for as much as Richardson might give us some throws that are going to be some of the best throws that we have seen this year, I don't know how much it's actually going to contribute to them winning football games because of where defense is and where the league is right now and what they are asking quarterbacks to do.
I completely agree. Look, I think with Richardson, it's a delicate balance between his talent and being able to just complete passes. And they ran the ball well. Considering they had the ball for less than 20 minutes, they ran the ball well. Yes, Jonathan Taylor, but Jeff Hafley and the Packers, they didn't care. We're going to go ahead, hand it off every play. Don't care, right? Here's the thing I like to do actually when evaluating college quarterbacks because the college game is so screen heavy and all that stuff. I like to filter out completion percentage and take the screens out of it, right? Because you hit 99 to 100% of them. Right now, Richardson's completing only 46% of his non-screen passes. All right, and anytime I found a quarterback that is hitting under 50, it's a huge problem. Okay, and just not being able to complete enough passes just to move the chains. Because, you mentioned the time of possession. We've talked about the Packers' run game. The Colts' 4 drives in the first half were 3 punts and a fumble. They just don't keep the chains moving. And the weird part is I'm starting to think about this now. The other thing, too, I'll get to is accuracy real quick. 31.4% of his passes this year have been charted by PFF as uncatchable. It's the second highest rate behind Bryce Young. So you have a Bryce Young level of accuracy, but obviously he's a way better athlete with a better arm who can stretch the field. That's certainly Richardson's not fearless. But in a game like this, you have to move the chains. The Packers have chosen the pace that they want to play this game at. You have to move the chains and sustain drives. And you can't have 5 turnover-worthy plays. So Richardson, the part I'm struggling with is the highest bit of optimism for me is he has Shane Steichen. Great play caller, right? Mm-hmm. But a huge part of Steichen's offense with the RPOs and the way it works is just getting first downs. We saw that with Gardner Minshew last year. The grades weren't particularly high, but we're like, okay, why are they breaking the code and the grades being low, but they're winning games? They just get just enough for first downs. Richardson doesn't have that in him right now to just be content to just not throw a 105-mile-an-hour fastball and just just sustain drives. There's so much of Steichen's offense that's just about sustaining drives, and they don't do that. So the time of possession thing works both ways for me in this game. It's a legitimate question right now how they can sustain offense if he's only going to complete that low a number of passes.